Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Meridian and watched the stars. His ship moved slowly through space, far from Earth and far from the war that had torn the galaxy apart for 30 years. The humans had stayed out of the fighting. They were new to this part of space, and the big alien empires barely knew they existed. The war was between two great powers. The Zephyrians controlled half the galaxy with their massive fleets and energy weapons. The Korathi Federation held the other half with their own advanced technology. Both sides had been killing each other for decades, and millions were dead. Jake's job was simple. He took his ship to unexplored systems and made maps. Sometimes he found new planets. Sometimes he found nothing at all. Today felt like it would be another quiet day in space. "Captain," called Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. "We're getting a message from the New Horizon." Jake frowned. The New Horizon was a human research station at the edge of known space. They rarely sent messages unless something was wrong. "Put it through." Commander Lisa Brooks appeared on the main screen. Her face was pale, and Jake could see smoke behind her. "Jake, we need help. The diplomatic convoy is gone. The Zephyrians destroyed it." Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth had sent a small group of diplomats to meet with both sides of the war. They wanted to offer help with peace talks. The convoy had 3 ships and maybe 50 people. What happened? "They thought our ships were Korathi vessels," Lisa said. "The Zephyrians opened fire without warning. No survivors. The New Horizon barely escaped." Jake closed his eyes. The humans had done everything right. They had sent the convoy with clear identification. They had told both sides about the mission. They had even brought gifts and offered to help end the war. None of it mattered now. "Lisa, are you safe?" Jake asked. "For now. But Jake, there's something else. The Zephyrians are calling it a victory. They're saying humans were secretly helping the Korathi. They're spreading lies across their empire." Jake opened his eyes. This was bad. Very bad. "I need to contact Admiral Davis." The message to Admiral Scott Davis took 6 hours to reach Earth. The reply came back in 12 hours. Jake read it 3 times before he believed it. Admiral Davis appeared on screen from the bridge of the Vanguard, Earth's most powerful warship. Behind him, Jake could see other officers moving quickly. Earth's peaceful days were over. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Davis said, "by order of the United Earth Council, humanity is officially at war with the Zephyrian Empire. You are to return to Earth immediately for new orders." Jake had known this would happen, but hearing it still shocked him. Humans had been in space for less than 100 years. They had built maybe 300 ships. The Zephyrians had thousands of vessels and controlled hundreds of worlds. "Sir," Jake said, "what about the Korathi?" "We've sent them a message. We're willing to work together against the Zephyrians. We'll see what they say." The next few days passed in a blur. Jake pushed the Meridian hard, jumping through hyperspace toward Earth. Other human ships joined them along the way. Captain Alex Rivera brought his patrol ship Swift Arrow. Commander Ben Torres arrived with a cargo vessel, Freedom. They met at the human colony world of New Texas. Admiral Davis was waiting with a small fleet of 20 ships. It looked tiny compared to the massive fleets Jake had seen in news reports about the war. "Captains," Admiral Davis said during the briefing, "I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered and outgunned. The Zephyrians have better shields, better weapons, and more ships. But we have something they don't." "What's that, sir?" asked Captain Rivera. "We know how to fight dirty." Jake looked around the room. The other captains seemed confused. They had trained for exploration and trade, not war. Admiral Davis continued. "The Zephyrians and Korathi fight like it's some kind of game. Big fleets meet in open space. They shoot energy weapons at each other until one side gives up. They've been doing it the same way for hundreds of years. And we're going to do it differently? Asked Commander Torres. We're going to do it the human way, Admiral Davis said. We're going to hit them where they don't expect it. We're going to use weapons they can't stop. We're going to make them afraid. Jake felt a chill. He had read about human history. Wars on Earth had been brutal affairs. Humans had learned to fight in every possible way. They had used tricks, traps, and terror to defeat enemies. Sir, Jake said, what about the civilians? What about the rules of war? Admiral Davis smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Captain, they killed our diplomats. They're spreading lies about us. They started this war. We're going to finish it. The meeting ended with orders. Jake would take the Meridian back to the front lines. His job was to find Zephyrian supply lines and report. Back, other ships would do the same. They would map enemy movements and look for weaknesses. As Jake prepared to leave, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster approached him. She had been transferred to Special Operations. Captain, I want you to know something. Command is putting together teams of specialists. We're going to show the galaxy what humans can do when they're angry. Jake nodded. He had seen Amy train. She was smart, tough, and creative. If anyone could cause trouble for the Zephyrians, it was her. The Meridian jumped back into hyperspace, heading for the war zone. Jake looked at the stars one last time as they disappeared into the swirling energy of faster-than-light travel. Wondered if the galaxy was ready for what was coming. The Zephyrians had destroyed a peace mission. They had killed innocent people. They had made humanity angry. Jake had a feeling they would regret it. Dr. Helen Carter stood in the war room on Earth, looking at a massive display of the galaxy. Red dots showed Zephyrian forces. Blue dots showed the Korathi Federation. The tiny green dots were human ships, scattered across the outer rim like seeds in the wind. The Zephyrians think they know how we fight, Helen said to the assembled officers. They're wrong. Admiral Davis nodded from his chair. Around the table sat the best military minds Earth had to offer. They had studied every human conflict from ancient times to the present. They had learned from every victory and every defeat. Doctor, said General Mary Johnson, what do you recommend? Helen smiled. We do what humans have always done. We adapt, we learn, we survive. The first test came 3 days later. Major Ryan Phillips took his small task force to the Zephyrian supply depot at Kepler Station. His orders were simple: cause as much damage as possible with minimal losses. Ryan had 5 ships. The Zephyrians had 50 ships protecting the depot. By all logic, it should have been suicide. But Ryan wasn't planning to fight fair. Remember, Ryan told his crews, we're not here to win a battle. We're here to teach them something. The human ships approached the depot from the shadow of a dead planet. They moved slowly, using minimal power. The Zephyrians had sensors that could detect energy signatures from across a system. They couldn't detect simple metal and rock. Ryan's ships were different from normal human vessels. The weapons had been changed. Instead of energy cannons, they carried railguns. Instead of missiles with explosive warheads, they carried solid metal rods. The Zephyrians detected the human ships when they were still an hour away. They formed their standard battle line, energy shields glowing bright blue. They charged their plasma cannons and waited. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Defense Force, came the message. Human vessels, you are outnumbered 10-1. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Ryan opened the channel. This is Major Phillips. We decline your offer. The Zephyrians opened fire first. Bright beams of energy reached across space toward the human ships. The beams struck the human vessels and bounced off harmlessly. The humans had covered their ships with simple metal plates. The energy weapons couldn't penetrate them. Then the humans fired back. The railguns launched solid metal rods at incredible speed. The rods moved so fast they were invisible to the naked eye. They struck the Zephyrian ships and punched straight through their energy shields. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were useless against solid objects, moving at near light speed in 10 minutes. Half the Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. The survivors fled in panic, broadcasting emergency messages about the demon weapons the humans possessed. But Ryan wasn't finished. He took his ships to the depot itself. The Zephyrians had automated defenses, but they were all energy-based. The humans destroyed them easily with their railguns. "Don't destroy the supplies," Ryan ordered. "Take them." The human ships loaded their cargo holds with Zephyrian fuel, food, and equipment. They also took something more valuable: information. The depot's computers contained details about Zephyrian military operations across 3 star systems. Meanwhile, Colonel Kate Sullivan was setting up the first human forward base in the Altair system. The Zephyrians had occupied the system for 5 years, but they hadn't expected humans to arrive. Kate's base was hidden inside an asteroid field. The Zephyrians couldn't detect it, and their large ships couldn't navigate the rocks. It was the perfect place for the kind of war humans intended to fight. "We're not here to hold territory," Kate explained to her officers. "We're here to make the Zephyrians afraid to leave their ships." The humans began training local rebels. The Korathi Federation had people on every world the Zephyrians controlled. These people wanted to fight, but they didn't know how. Kate's job was to teach them. The lessons were simple: how to build bombs from common materials, how to disappear in a crowd, how to strike quickly and escape before the enemy could respond, how to make the occupying forces paranoid and afraid. The first attack came a week later. A Zephyrian patrol in the capital city of Altair Prime was destroyed by a hidden explosive device. The survivors reported that the attack had come from nowhere. They had no idea who was responsible. More attacks followed. Supply convoys were ambushed. Communication towers were destroyed. Zephyrian officers found bombs in their quarters. The occupying forces began to crack under the pressure. Commander Ben Torres led the most daring mission of all. His target was a Zephyrian command center on the planet Vega 4. The center controlled military operations for an entire sector. Ben's team was small, only 12 people. They approached the planet in a captured Zephyrian cargo ship. The ship's identification codes had been changed by human computer experts. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a routine supply delivery. Ben's team landed at the command center without being challenged. They wore captured Zephyrian uniforms and carried stolen identity cards. They walked straight into the most secure military facility in the sector. The attack lasted 30 minutes. Ben's team placed explosive charges in key locations throughout the complex. They also planted computer viruses that would spread through the Zephyrian military network. When the charges exploded, the entire command center collapsed. Hundreds of Zephyrian officers died instantly. The computer viruses began corrupting data across the sector. Ships lost navigation. Weapons systems failed. Communications went dead. But the most important part of the mission was what Ben's team took with them. They captured a Zephyrian general and his entire staff. These prisoners would provide valuable intelligence about enemy plans. The news of these attacks spread quickly through Zephyrian space. The humans were not fighting like a normal enemy. They appeared without warning, struck with devastating effect, and vanished before anyone could respond. Worse, the humans were learning. Every captured Zephyrian weapon was studied and improved. Every piece of technology was reverse engineered and adapted. The humans were becoming more dangerous with each passing day. The Zephyrian Emperor called an emergency council. "How is this possible?" he demanded. They have fewer than 300. Ships, we have thousands. Your Majesty, said Admiral Vexnell, they don't fight like us. They don't care about honor or proper battle formations. They attack supply lines, train rebels, and use weapons we can't defend against. Then we will adapt, the Emperor said. We will learn their methods and use them against them. But the Admiral shook his head. Your Majesty, adaptation is what they do best. By the time we learn their current tactics, they will have developed new ones. The Emperor fell silent. For the first time in his long reign, he was truly afraid. The humans had only been fighting for a few months, but they were already changing the nature of warfare itself. On Earth, Dr. Helen Carter received reports of the successful operations. She smiled as she read them. The plan was working perfectly. The Zephyrians were learning to fear humanity. Phase 1 is complete, she told Admiral Davis. Now we move to Phase 2. What's Phase 2? The Admiral asked. We show them what real war looks like. General Mary Johnson stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching 7 different battle screens at once. Today was the day humanity would show the galaxy what coordinated warfare looked like. All teams report ready, said Captain Alex Rivera. From his new starfighter. Alex had been promoted to lead the first squadron of human-designed fighters. They were small, fast, and deadly. Operation Thunder begins in 60 seconds, Mary announced to the fleet. Across 7 star systems, human, forces prepared to strike simultaneously. Each attack would be different, tailored to local conditions and enemy weaknesses. The Zephyrians had learned to expect human raids. They had reinforced their supply lines and improved their defenses. But they were still thinking like the old. Galaxy, they expected humans to attack one target at a time. Mary had a different idea. All units execute. In the Rigel system, Major Tony Baker led a squadron of modified cargo ships against a Zephyrian patrol fleet. The cargo ships looked harmless, but they were packed with explosive drones. When the Zephyrians moved to intercept them, the drones swarmed out like angry bees. Each drone carried a small nuclear warhead. The Zephyrians' energy shields could stop their plasma cannons, but the drones simply flew through the shields and detonated against the hull. 12 Zephyrian cruisers died in as many seconds. In the Vega system, Commander Sophie Martin used a different approach. Her ships didn't fight at all. Instead, they released thousands of tiny satellites into the space around the Zephyrian fleet. The satellites looked like space debris, but they were actually sophisticated jamming devices. Within minutes, the Zephyrian fleet lost all communication with each other and with their command. They couldn't coordinate their movements or call for help. They were effectively blind and deafed out. Then the real attack began. Human ships appeared from hyperspace, already firing. The Zephyrians couldn't organize a defense. Their ships were picked off one by one, unable to work together. In the Altair system, Colonel Kate Sullivan led a ground assault on the Zephyrian occupation forces. But this wasn't a normal ground battle. Kate's troops were all volunteers from the local population, trained in human tactics. The attack came from everywhere at once. Bombs exploded in Zephyrian barracks. Snipers picked off officers from rooftops. Entire supply convoys vanished into the underground tunnels that Kate's people had dug. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but they couldn't find their enemies. The rebels looked like ordinary citizens. They hid in plain sight, struck without warning, and melted back into the population. Within hours, the Zephyrian forces on Altair Prime were trapped in their own bases, afraid to venture outside. The planet had been liberated without a single major battle, but the most impressive attack was Alex Rivera's. His squadron of 30 starfighters engaged a Zephyrian battle group of 200 ships. By every measure, it should have been a massacre. Alex's fighters were different from anything the galaxy had seen. They were small enough to hide in the shadow of larger ships. They were fast enough to outrun most weapons. And they were equipped with hybrid human Karathi technology that made them nearly invisible to sensors. Remember, Alex told his pilots, we're not here to win a slugging match. We're here to prove a point. The fighters attacked like a school of fish, moving in perfect coordination. They struck the Zephyrian flagship first, crippling its main guns with precisely placed shots. Then they scattered, each pilot choosing his own target. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for fighting other capital ships. They couldn't track targets as small and fast as the human fighters. Their massive guns were useless against enemies that could dodge between the shots in 20 minutes. The entire Zephyrian battle group was disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. The human fighters had surgically removed engines, weapons, and communication systems. The Zephyrian ships were left floating helplessly in space. This is Alex Rivera to Admiral Kethvar. Alex broadcast to the crippled flagship. Your ships are intact. Your crews are alive. But you're out of the fight. That's the difference between human warfare and Zephyrian warfare. We don't have to kill you to beat you. The news of the coordinated attacks spread across the galaxy. In hours, 7 star systems attacked simultaneously. Thousands of Zephyrian ships defeated by hundreds of human vessels. The impossible had become reality. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Vex Thul called another emergency council. This time, his advisors were openly afraid. How did they coordinate attacks across 7 systems? The Emperor demanded. Our intelligence says they have no quantum communication network. They don't need one, Your Majesty, said Admiral Zekvar. I planned this in advance. Every human commander knew exactly what to do and when to do it. They think differently than us. Then we will change our tactics, the Emperor said. We will spread our forces. We will be unpredictable. But Admiral Zekvar shook his head. Your Majesty, they want us to spread our forces. It makes us easier to defeat in detail. Every change we make plays into their hands. Meanwhile, the Karathi Federation was having its own crisis. Admiral Vex Sky had been watching the human attacks with growing concern. The humans were effective allies, but they were also terrifying. They disabled an entire battle group without killing anyone. Vex-Kai told the Federation Council. That level of precision is beyond anything we've ever seen. Isn't that good? Asked Counselor Irultan. They're showing mercy. No, Vex-Kai said. They're showing control. They could have killed everyone, but they chose not to. That's more frightening than any weapon. The Council fell silent. They had requested human help to fight the Zephyrians. Now they were beginning to wonder if they had made a mistake. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell was working on humanities. Next surprise. Her team of engineers had been studying captured Zephyrian technology for months. They had found weaknesses that even the Zephyrians didn't know about. Their shields work by deflecting energy, Sarah explained to her team. But they create a small gap where the shield generator connects to the ship. If we can hit that exact. Double quotes. The new weapons were already being installed on human ships. They were precision-guided missiles that could find and exploit the tiny weakness in Zephyrian shields. One shot would bring down defenses that had protected enemy ships for centuries. But Sarah's team had developed something even more dangerous. They had created a computer virus that could spread through Zephyrian networks. The virus would corrupt navigation systems, causing ships to get lost in hyperspace. It would disable weapons at critical moments. It would turn the Zephyrians' own technology against them. The next phase of the war will be fought in cyberspace, Sarah told Admiral Davis. We're going to make their computers our allies. Captain Danny Rodriguez was already putting the new weapons to use. His mission was to infiltrate the Zephyrian shipyards at Procyon Station. These shipyards produced half of all Zephyrian warships. Destroying them would cripple the enemy's ability to replace their losses. Danny's team approached the shipyards in a captured Zephyrian vessel. They had spent weeks studying Zephyrian procedures and protocols. They knew the guard rotations, the communication codes, and the security systems. The infiltration was perfect. Danny's team planted charges throughout the shipyards while simultaneously uploading Sarah's virus into the station's computer network. The virus would spread to every ship built at the facility, turning them into time bombs. When the charges exploded, the shipyards were completely destroyed. But the real damage was just beginning. The virus would spread through the Zephyrian fleet like a disease, causing systems to fail at the worst possible moments. The Karathi Federation had been watching these operations with growing alarm. Their own intelligence chief, Commander YX Now, met secretly with Admiral Vex Kai. "Sir," YX Now said, "we need to talk about our human allies. They're not just fighting the Zephyrians. They're studying us too." "What do you mean?" Vex Kai asked. "Every piece of technology we've shared with them, they've improved. Every tactic we've taught them, they've made more effective. They're learning everything about us." Vex Kai felt a chill. "You think they're planning to turn on us?" "I think they're planning for every possibility," YX Now said. "That's what makes them dangerous. They don't just fight their current enemies. They prepare for future ones." The Federation Council met in emergency session. The debate was heated but brief. They needed human help to defeat the Zephyrians, but they also needed to prepare for what would come after. "We will continue the alliance," Admiral Vex Kai announced, "but we will also begin preparing our own defenses, just in case." As the third phase of the war ended, the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. They didn't just fight to win battles. They fought to win wars. They thought ahead, planned for contingencies, and always had another surprise ready. Zephyrians were beginning to break under the pressure. The Karathi were beginning to fear their own allies. And the humans were just getting started. In the depths of space, Admiral Davis received reports from all fronts. The coordinated attacks had been a complete success. The enemy was confused, demoralized, and increasingly desperate. "Phase 3 complete," he announced to his staff. "Begin Phase 4. "What's Phase 4, sir?" asked his aide. Davis smiled. "We make them disappear." Major Claire Thompson sat in a small cafe on the Zephyrian capital world, sipping tea and reading the local news. To everyone around her, she looked like a normal citizen. Her skin had been altered to match Zephyrian features. Her voice carried the right accent. Even her thoughts were shielded from telepathic scanning. Claire was part of something the galaxy had never seen before. A network of human spies that had infiltrated every level of Zephyrian society. They were teachers, merchants, engineers, and even government officials. They had been building their network for months, and now it was ready to strike. "The morning news is interesting today," Claire said into her hidden communicator. It was code. The message meant that the Zephyrian home fleet was preparing to leave orbit. Across the galaxy, similar messages were being sent. Human operatives reported troop movements, supply shipments, and classified military plans. The Zephyrians thought their communications were secure, but humans had been listening to everything for weeks. The reports reached Major Tony Baker aboard the stealth ship Ghost. Tony's mission was to make Zephyrian fleets disappear without a trace. He had been tracking a battle group of 50 ships for 3 days. "They're heading for the Centauri system," Tony told his crew. "Time to show them what real stealth looks like." The Ghost and her sister ships were completely invisible to Zephyrian sensors. They used technology that absorbed radar, blocked heat signatures, and bent light around their hulls. They were like holes in space itself. Tony's ships followed the Zephyrian fleet into hyperspace. When the enemy ships emerged at Centauri, they found what looked like empty space. They began their patrol pattern, unaware that human ships were shadowing their every move. Now, Tony whispered, the human ships didn't fire weapons. Instead, they released clouds of microscopic machines called nanobots. The nanobots were programmed to seek out and attach to enemy ships. Once attached, they would begin eating through the hull. The Zephyrian fleet continued its patrol, not knowing that their ships were being consumed from the outside. The nanobots worked slowly, carefully, leaving no trace of their presence. They ate through armor, disabled weapons, and severed communication lines. After 6 hours, the Zephyrian fleet simply stopped working. 50 ships went dark simultaneously. Their hulls remained intact, but everything inside had been systematically destroyed. The crews were unharmed, but stranded in dead ships. "This is Captain Zekvar to any Zephyrian vessel," came a desperate message. "Our entire fleet has been disabled. We have no power, no weapons, no communication. We don't know what happened." The message was heard throughout Zephyrian space. An entire fleet had been neutralized without a single shot being fired. The humans had turned warfare into something invisible and terrifying. Dr. Nathan Price was working on an even more frightening weapon. His laboratory on Earth was filled with samples of Zephyrian biology. He had been studying their genetics, their immune systems, and their weaknesses. "I can create a virus that would kill every Zephyrian in the galaxy," Nathan told Admiral Grace Williams. "It would be completely harmless to humans and Karathi, but fatal to them." Grace studied the research data. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. It would spread through air, water, and touch. It would be impossible to stop once. Released, it would end the war in days. "Doctor," Grace said carefully, "what are the ethical implications?" Nathan looked uncomfortable. "It would be genocide, Admiral. Complete and total. Every Zephyrian man, woman, and child would die." Grace closed the file. "Then we don't use it. We're fighting a war, not committing mass murder." "But Admiral," Nathan protested, "it would save human lives. It would end the war immediately. It would also make us monsters," Grace said. "We fight because we have to, not because we want to kill. Keep working on the virus, but only as a last resort. We'll find another way." That other way was being developed by Commander Tony Baker's Special Operations Team. They had captured several Zephyrian ships intact and learned to operate them perfectly. Now they were using those ships to sow chaos in enemy territory. "Remember," Tony told his crew, "we're not human anymore. We're loyal Zephyrian citizens reporting suspicious activity." Tony's false flag operation was brilliant in its simplicity. His team would approach a Zephyrian fleet in captured ships, claiming to have urgent intelligence. They would report that. Other Zephyrian ships in the area were actually human infiltrators. The confusion was immediate and devastating. Zephyrian fleets began attacking each other based on false reports. Ships that had served together for years suddenly became enemies. The Zephyrian military was tearing itself apart. Admiral Kethvar, commanding the Zephyrian Third Fleet, received one such report. "Sir," said his intelligence officer, "we're getting reports that the Fifth Fleet has been compromised by human operatives." "How is that possible?" Kethvar demanded. "The humans have been using our own ships against us. They've learned to copy our identification codes, our communication protocols, everything. Kethvar made a fateful decision. We attack the Fifth Fleet before they can attack us." The battle was brief but bloody. 2 loyal Zephyrian fleets destroyed each other, while human observers watched from a safe distance. Neither side realized they had been manipulated until it was too late. Similar incidents were happening across Zephyrian space. The Empire's military was collapsing from within, poisoned by paranoia and false information. Ships refused to work together. Commanders distrusted their own officers. The chain of command was breaking down. Colonel Emma Davis was watching this chaos from the Karathi Federation headquarters. Her job was to keep the human alliance with the Karathi intact, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. Emma said, "Admiral Vex Kai, we need to talk about your people's methods." "What about them?" Emma asked. "They're making the Zephyrians attack each other." "That's not war, that's manipulation." Emma nodded. "It's effective manipulation. We're winning without losing a single human life." "But at what cost?" Vex Kai asked. "You're turning the Zephyrians into paranoid lunatics." "What happens when the war ends? What happens to the survivors?" Emma had been wondering the same thing. The human approach to warfare was incredibly effective, but it was also changing the nature of conflict itself. Future wars would be fought differently because of what humanity had shown was possible. "Admiral," Emma said, "we didn't start this war. We're just finishing it." The Karathi Federation was holding emergency sessions about their human allies. The debates were heated and frightening. "They've infiltrated Zephyrian society completely," reported Intelligence Chief Y. X. Now. "Their operatives are everywhere. They know everything about their enemies." "What do they know about us?" asked Counselor Veltan. "Everything," Y. X. Now said quietly. "They've been studying us just as carefully as they studied the Zephyrians. They know our weaknesses, our capabilities, our plans." The council fell silent. They had invited the humans to help them fight the Zephyrians. Now they realized they had given humanity everything they needed to conquer the Karathi Federation as well. "What do you recommend?" asked Admiral Vex Kai. "We prepare," Y. X. Now said. "We assume that someday we might have to fight them. We develop new technologies they haven't seen. We create plans they don't know about. We make ourselves harder to defeat." Meanwhile, the Zephyrian Empire was in complete chaos. Emperor Vex Thul had lost contact with half his fleets. The others were reporting impossible things: ships that vanished without a trace, fleets that destroyed themselves, technology that turned against its users. "How many ships have we lost?" The Emperor asked his staff. "We're not sure, Your Majesty," said Admiral Zekvar. "Some fleets have simply disappeared. Others have been destroyed by friendly fire. Our communication networks are compromised." "Then we fight with what we have," the Emperor declared. "Gather every available ship. We make one final attack on the human homeworld." "Your Majesty," the Admiral said carefully, "our intelligence suggests that would be suicide. The humans have been planning for exactly that scenario." "Then what do you suggest?" The Emperor asked. The Admiral had no answer. The humans had taken away all their options. They couldn't fight effectively because they couldn't trust their own forces. They couldn't communicate because their networks were compromised. They couldn't even retreat because they didn't know where the humans were. On Earth, Admiral Davis was receiving reports from all fronts. The psychological warfare campaign was working better than anyone had expected. The Zephyrian Empire was imploding under the weight of its own paranoia. "Sir," said his aide, "we're getting reports that some Zephyrian worlds are trying to surrender individually. They're afraid their own military will attack them." Davis nodded. "Accept the surrenders. Station small peacekeeping forces on each world. Make sure they understand that we're not conquerors, we're liberators." "What about the Karathi?" the aide asked. "They're getting nervous," Davis admitted. "They're starting to see us as a threat. We need to be careful not to push them too far." The fourth phase of the war was ending, but the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had proven they could destroy any enemy through superior tactics and psychological warfare. The question now was whether they could win the peace. In the depths of space, Zephyrian fleets continued to disappear. Some were destroyed by nanobots. Others were turned against each oath. Fleet Admiral Jack Thompson stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the final human fleet approach the Zephyrian homeworld. Behind him, 300 human ships moved in perfect formation. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. But Jack knew the real battle had already been won. Major Lisa Parker and her cyber warfare team had spent months preparing for this moment. They had infiltrated every computer system in the Zephyrian Empire. They had planted viruses, backdoors, and logic bombs throughout the enemy's technology. Major Parker, Jack said into his communicator, begin the final phase. Lisa was sitting in a small room deep inside the Vanguard, surrounded by computer screens. Her team of 12 specialists had been working for 18 hours straight. They looked tired, but their eyes were bright with anticipation. Execute shutdown protocol, Lisa ordered. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian technology began to fail. Not violently, not obviously, but systematically and completely. Navigation computers displayed false coordinates. Weapon systems refused to fire. Communication networks went silent. Life support systems switched to emergency power. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Vex Thul was in his war room when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, but the holographic displays remained dark. The quantum communicators were silent. Even the doors were locked. What's happening? The Emperor demanded. Your Majesty, said his aide, every system is failing. The humans have done something to our computers. The Emperor rushed to the window. Outside, the mighty Zephyrian home fleet was floating helplessly in space. Hundreds of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had been reduced to metal coffins. Their crews were alive but powerless. Captain Rob Anderson commanded the lead human ship as they approached the silent Zephyrian fleet. His orders were clear. Accept surrender, maintain order, and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. This is Captain Anderson of the United Earth Forces. He broadcast on all frequencies. Zephyrian vessels, your technology has been disabled. Your empire has fallen. Surrender now, and no harm will come to you. The response came from Admiral Kethvar, the same officer who had once mocked human capabilities. Human captain, he said, we surrender. Our ships are dead. Our empire is finished. What are your terms? Rob felt no joy in the moment. He had seen too much war to celebrate victory. Admiral, prepare your ships for inspection. Medical teams will be sent to assist any injured personnel. Your crews will be treated according to galactic law. But the real shock came from the Karathi Federation. Admiral Vexguy's fleet had been approaching the Zephyrian homeworld from the opposite side, preparing to support the human attack. Instead, they found themselves facing a fait accompli. Admiral Thompson, Vexguy said over the communication channel, we were not informed of this operation. Jack had been dreading this conversation. Admiral, the situation developed quickly. We acted on intelligence that suggested the Zephyrians were planning a last-ditch attack on civilian targets. You acted without consulting your allies, Vexguy said coldly. You've ended the war without us. The implication was clear. The Karathi Federation had expected to share in the victory. Instead, they had been rendered irrelevant by humanity's overwhelming success. Commander Sophie Martin was leading the occupation forces that secured key Zephyrian installations. Her teams moved with professional efficiency, but Sophie could see the fear in the aliens' eyes. They weren't just afraid of conquest. They were afraid of the unknown. The humans don't act like other species, one captured Zephyrian officer told Sophie. We don't understand how you think. We don't know what you want. Sophie tried to reassure him. We want peace. We want to rebuild. We want to make sure this war never happens again. But how? The officer asked. You've shown that you can destroy any enemy. You've proven that resistance is futile. What's to stop you from conquering everyone? Sophie had no answer. The question was being asked across the galaxy. Humanity had demonstrated capabilities that made traditional warfare obsolete. They had shown that they could infiltrate any society, corrupt any technology, and defeat any enemy. The Karathi Federation was holding emergency sessions. The debate was no longer about fighting the Zephyrians. It was about surviving the humans. They've made themselves the dominant power in the galaxy, Admiral Vexkai told the Federation Council. They've shown that our technology, our tactics, our entire way of thinking is obsolete. What do you recommend? Asked Counselor Ireltan. We isolate them, Vexkai said. We restrict trade, limit communication, and prepare our own defenses. We treat them like the threat they've become. But other voices in the council disagreed. They were our allies, argued Counselor Melvar. They helped us defeat the Zephyrians. Shouldn't we try to work with them? Can you work with a species that can read your thoughts, predict your actions, and turn your own technology against you? Vexkai asked. They've made themselves gods of war. We're just hoping they remain benevolent gods. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison was addressing the United Earth Council. He had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces, but the title felt hollow. Victory had come at a price he was only beginning to understand. The war is over, Jake reported. Zephyrian resistance has completely collapsed. Their empire is under human administration. Reconstruction efforts are beginning. What about our allies? Asked Counselor Sarah Kim. The Karathi Federation is reassessing their relationship with humanity, Jake said carefully. They're concerned about our methods and our capabilities. Are they right to be concerned? Asked Counselor James Liu. Jake considered the question. Yes, I think they are. We've shown that we can defeat any enemy, infiltrate any society, and control any technology. That's terrifying, even to our friends. The council fell silent. They had wanted to protect humanity from galactic war. Instead, they had made humanity the most feared species in the galaxy. What do you recommend, Admiral? Asked Counselor Kim. We need to be very careful, Jake said. We need to prove that we can be trusted with the power we've gained. We need to show the galaxy that we're protectors, not conquerors. But even as Jake spoke, he knew it would be difficult. The methods humanity had used to win the war, infiltration, manipulation, psychological warfare, were not easily forgotten. The galaxy would always remember what humans were capable of when threatened. Reports began arriving from across human-controlled space. Some were encouraging. Former Zephyrian worlds were adapting to human administration, and reconstruction was proceeding smoothly. Others were troubling. Karathi merchants were avoiding human space, and neutral species were requesting protection from the human threat. Major Lisa Parker was still working on the final phase of the cyber warfare campaign. Her team had shut down Zephyrian military technology, but they had also gained access to civilian systems. They could read every message, monitor every transaction, and track every movement in former Zephyrian space. We have complete surveillance coverage, Lisa reported to her superiors. We can see everything that happens in Zephyrian territory. That's not necessarily a good thing, warned Colonel Emma Davis. The other species already think we're too powerful. If they learn we can spy on entire civilizations, then they'll be even more afraid of us, Lisa finished. But Admiral, the capability exists. We can't pretend it doesn't. The human leadership faced an impossible choice. They could use their surveillance capabilities to maintain peace and prevent future conflicts. But doing so would confirm the galaxy's worst fears about human intentions. The Karathi Federation made their decision first. They announced the formation of a Galactic Defense Alliance, a military coalition designed to protect member species from emerging threats. The target was not named, but everyone knew they meant humanity. Within weeks, dozens of species had joined the alliance. Former enemies united by their shared fear of human capabilities. The galaxy was dividing into two camps, those under human protection and those preparing to resist human expansion. Admiral Jack Thompson received the intelligence reports with growing concern. "They're building a coalition against us," he told his staff. "Every species that can fight is joining the Karathi Alliance." "Are we going to fight them?" asked Captain Anderson. Jack looked out at the stars. "I don't know. We've shown that we can defeat any enemy, but can we defeat everyone? And more importantly, should we?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A message arrived from the Zephyrian homeworld. It was from Emperor Vex Thul, now a prisoner in his own palace. "Admiral Thompson," the Emperor said, "I have a proposal. You've conquered my empire, but you've also made the galaxy afraid of you. I suggest a different approach. What do you have in mind?" Jack asked, "Make me your partner instead of your prisoner. Let me help you govern. Show the galaxy that you can work with former enemies. Prove that conquest is not your only option." Jack considered the proposal. It was risky, but it might be the key to winning the peace. "What do you get out of it?" "The chance to rebuild my people," the Emperor said. "The opportunity to show that surrender to humanity is not the end of civilization, but the beginning of something better." The decision was made at the highest levels of human government. The Zephyrian Empire would be restored as a protectorate, under human oversight. Emperor Vex Thul would rule, but his Poli